You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
Hi, I am Ahonu, and on behalf of my lovely twin flame wife, Aingeal Rose, we are privileged to bring you this discussion entitled On the Evolution of Human Consciousness. In this episode, Sarah Devoy engages in an insightful conversation with the renowned psychotherapist, healer, and author Shirley Ward. Both of these people are at the cutting edge of the evolution of consciousness. And amongst many other things, they talk about the impact of pre- and perinatal psychology on human behavior. It sheds light on how our earliest experiences, even those in the womb, profoundly shape our future, our behavior, our health, and our overall well-being. Sarah is a polarity and craniosacral therapist with her own practice in West Cork on the southwest coast of Ireland. She trained in Switzerland with Dr. William Emerson and studied craniosacral therapy in the UK with teachers who she has admired back in the 90s whilst training as a polarity therapist. She says it continues to be a privilege to witness clients rediscovering their potency and their aliveness. Craniosacral therapy settles our nervous system, and when combined with pre- and perinatal psychology, the insights are extraordinary. Now, Shirley Ward has over 50 years of experience as a psychotherapist. She's a healer, trainer, and the author of 3 books, the 4th to be published in 2025. Shirley has lectured internationally, including at the United Nations in Vienna, at various conferences across Europe, Russia, and America. She writes and teaches on topics like birth trauma, bullying, depression, and even schizoid personality disorders. She passionately emphasizes the importance of understanding our earliest impressions in the womb, how they shape our future, and the interconnectedness of consciousness and healing. I studied under Shirley Ward with Alison Hunter at the Amethyst Resource for Human Development in Ireland in 1982. She and Alison Hunter spearheaded the experiential work of over 2,500 people reliving their journey from conception to birth, and they're both known for pioneering research in this field, often utilizing techniques like regression therapy, primal integration, and energy healing to help people access and process early life experiences. Unfortunately, Alison died on the 8th of November 2019, and we'd like to dedicate this session to her memory. Now here's Sarah and Shirley Ward.
So Shirley, it's wonderful
Hello.
to be with you again. It's brilliant, and really looking forward to this series of conversations about things that matter and why this work is so relevant and important in our current world. For those of you who don't know Shirley, I feel I better give her a little introduction for those who haven't had the pleasure of being trained by her or reading some of her incredible books. Shirley Ward sees herself as an eclectic psychotherapist, healer, trainer, and author. And for over 50 years, she has lectured and offered personal sessions. She has lectured and run workshops internationally at the United Nations in Vienna, England, Russia, Ireland, Europe, and America. And there's no stopping her, it seems. And her main influences were Dr. Frank Lake, which is an incredible privilege to meet someone who has been a student of his. And then there's Alison Hunter, who was an extremely important influence, Rosalind Bruyère, and the work of Thierry de Chardin. And Shirley has delivered papers on some extraordinary topics about how birth trauma and our earliest impressions in the womb influence our future outlook. And this is really not something that's just, our birth trauma, or what about, or what why does that make a difference? We're talking about really challenging topics like bullying, like suicide, like depression, like narcissism, and even schizoid personality disorders, and how some of these things can all begin in utero or if not before, and how these themes deeply relate to the whole field of pre and perinatal psychology. So over to you, Shirley, to put all of this in some kind of a context. That would be wonderful.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's lovely to be with you again. Um, and just listening to what you're talking about, I sometimes go into shock with the amount of stuff that I know. Um, and as you were talking, the word that came up in one of the book reviews was the word um, polymath. The polymath, the person who's got a lot of knowledge and skills, and really is a jack of all trades, but with expertise. And I thought, well, maybe I can fit that. And so, what you're talking about, and of course, this, the world, that's my globe that's made of the stones of the world. And of course, it's the most important thing, the most important aspect of my life about saving the planet, preserving the planet for our children and our children's children. And so everything we're doing, or everything I know I'm doing, is to bring it together, so that humanity can do something about their own lives, about their own growth, about their own development, have the choice, and at the same time save the planet. Won't be everyone who wants to do it, but you know, we do live in a rapidly changing world. And certainly over the last 120 years, humanity has seen unbelievable evolution. You know, my grandmother was alive in 1880 and with the penny farthing, or just after that, anyway, the penny farthing. And here we are into space travel and the idea that, yeah, we'll soon be able to catch a spaceship and go to Australia in an hour. I don't quite know when it's going to happen, but this is the world. But because I've come from the world of developing consciousness and taken part in workshops on consciousness, underneath everything that's happening with all the inventions and all the different things that people are studying, behind the human creativity is the evolution of consciousness. And I think my whole life, right from childhood, I've been aware of evolution, of being aware of change and how you cope with change, how I've had to cope with change and all the different things in my life. But it's something that Ken Wilber's work patterns. Some of you will know Ken Wilber's work, but it's very well worth looking up because he patterns um, physics as matter, biology as life, psychology as mind, of course, and theology as soul, and mysticism as spirit. And this is all the interrelatedness of who we are, what we are, and why my books really cover so much information. And I'm having great difficulty with the next one because I'm trying to pull the stuff together, and it's what to leave out and uh, what don't I know enough about, and leave the stuff out, Shirley, that you don't know. But but I am aware that over the last 50 or 60 years, so certain pockets of humanity, in different areas, have been involved in the use of expansion into the deeper realms, allowing many different approaches, which addresses many levels of consciousness. And particularly the involvement of complementary medicines, which many people now in the West have studied. I mean, many of these spiritual experiences or spiritual traditions, they came from the East. But now in the West, there are many different approaches, which are many levels of consciousness. So we really can't get away from it. And so people are all at different levels. Some people will be interested in what I'm talking about, and some, like I was with a group last week, and they hadn't never heard anything of pre and perinatal and were so excited. They were so excited of hearing this and wondered why they hadn't heard about it before. And I really think that when people are ready, they'll hear about it. They'll come across it.
But
So that's
Shirley,
where I am.
yeah, Shirley, I wondered whether we could just go back along the road a little bit because I'm aware that, for many people, with all the crisis and things that are going on in the world, people will say, well, what can we do about it? And I'm sort of hearing loud and clear for you that you feel there is something of value that we can offer and do, but it might be on a more inner level rather than on an outer level. And I'm wondering if you could just, in a way, go take us a little bit baby steps with that, because for many people, the idea of how our inner world will shape the outer world is quite unfathomable.
Well, I could go off on 1,000 tangents here. Uh,
How would you start with, say, even communicating with that lovely group that you had down the road who, as you say, haven't been exposed before and were quite enthusiastic and open?
well, I think it takes time. I think to become conscious, first of all, that we are responsible. We're responsible for a lot of stuff that's happening, but not because we wanted to, but because we are terribly ignorant, not through our own fault, but we just don't know. We just haven't known. It was like space travel. We didn't know anything about that. And space travel, we didn't know anything about the cosmos. And there's a Hubble telescope, and all these things has been invented. So we know what's going on um, out in the universe. And possibly the thing about as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
We're becoming much more aware of expansion.
Mm.
And people will take their own time. This work is, people say, well, you're 100 years ahead of your time. And I say, well, I know, but it's got to be taught. It's got to be, just little seeds. A little seed has got to be dropped so that people can begin to say, well, is there really something about this? This.
I'm a terrible interrupter, Shirley, but
No,
I'm
no problem.
but I'm wondering if we should start way at the beginning, because your unique, gift to the world is bringing this awareness of pre and perinatal psychology. I mean, it was way back in the 90s. Sorry to drag you back there, when we first met, and that was you. You were like, there you were in Dublin, and shining the light with Alison and others on this whole field of pre and perinatal psychology, which is, of course, the very essence of your books. And perhaps as we continue on these conversations, we can highlight, certain of the books so that people can find a way in, because everyone responds in different ways, whether it's through reading or seeing things. And some people need sort of tangible things in their hands, don't they, to really kind of give it a shape. But so will we just go all the way back to the beginning and explore how, when consciousness begins?
Well, you see, I will go back to preconception. People say preconception. Yeah. And before conception, is there an energy before conception? Some you have to we have to understand that what I'm talking about, and people of many traditions, many cultures can hear it, and they come from many traditions. Uh, and the ones in the East have had wonderful, wonderful traditions regarding conception and looking after people who want to be pregnant, who wish to have a baby, and they look after their people well before conception. And of course, more is done now on nutrients and food and how how parents eat. Do they smoke? Do they drink? We know medically what happens to a baby whose parents have been drinking. You get the fetal alcohol syndrome, and then you get the whole drinking problems later and alcoholism. And I'm sorry, I don't want to upset anybody, but this, I'm afraid, is what happens. And we know that if a mom's going to be drinking, she'll have a smaller baby and anemic babies and problems that, if the drink wasn't there, the problems wouldn't be there. And so it's bringing this into consciousness that your babies, your children, your adult children will stand a better chance by being looked after right from the very start. And it's not for everyone, because it's a terrible responsibility, really. But I do believe that if we want to save the planet, and this, from preconception to birth, is the place for learning. It's not the room of learning, it's the womb of learning. And maybe if that can just sink in,
And
what
that's
do
a
we do?
huge piece. That is a huge piece, what you're saying there, Shirley. I mean, you're so full of golden nuggets that, it might be really good just to take a pause with that. That you're saying, what I'm hearing you saying, is that what is going on in the womb is deeply shaping us and deeply shaping our future. So, yeah, we need to stay with that. We need to dwell in that territory, because that is absolutely massive.
This is why I've continued the work for 50 years or so. Some people think I'm crazy, think I'm just completely obsessed, but there's a bigger message for the world, and I'm not the only one saying it. There's, as I say, there's pockets of people around the world, and they're looking at this now.
Shirley, as well, that as we're speaking, because obviously, people will be listening, and they'll have their own birth story, or maybe their own story with their own families and their own issues when they were pregnant. But I mean, there's no point in talking about this unless we can heal it. So I think healing is always available. Are we agreed on that one?
Absolutely, and I do believe if a mom has had difficulties with her conception and pregnancy, good parenting and good mothering, can help to heal. People. So a lot of the psychologists will say, "Oh well, the first 5 years, and from school, from birth, it's the most important." But it's not. It's the first 9 months that is the most important.
Mm.
And I know in my humanity of the future, I do talk about some of this. I know that these early experiences have a profound impact on human behavior, on character, on health and well-being, and with life starting really at the energy of preconception and not birth, as so many think. So yeah, it's massive.
This episode was packed with thoughtful dialogue and heartfelt wisdom that pushes the boundaries of what we understand about human development and consciousness. Whether you're new to Shirley Ward's work or a long-time follower, you're sure to leave this conversation with fresh insights. One reassuring aspect of this discussion for us was the potential for healing. It's never too late, Shirley reassured us, no matter what age we are. Good parenting, nurturing environments, and conscious efforts can mitigate these prenatal traumas. As humanity becomes more conscious, understanding, and addressing prenatal psychology, it'll become integral to healthier and a more balanced life for everyone. Sarah Devoy's expert craniosacral services can be found at sarahdevoycraniosacral.com, and Shirley's wisdom and experiences available to you by visiting shirleyward.org. And you can find all her books on Amazon by searching for Shirley Ward or from the links on her website. Part 2 of this conversation follows next. So all that remains is for me to say thank you and blessings from myself, Ahonu.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio. your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.